Well, hello Divi Nation, and welcome to a brand new Divi use case live stream where each week we show you how to add new design and functionality to your Divi websites. And today in this live stream tutorial, we're going to be showing you how you can add some sticky page navigation links to Divi sections in Divi. These will be links like next, previous, first, last to help you navigate through your page by clicking buttons instead of scroll like the traditional method. So hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to check the video description for more info on this use case. Let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, welcome everyone. Hope my live stream's coming in loud and clear. Please give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me okay. And let us know your name, where you're from. Always interested to see where you guys are from, and glad to be joining you today. So let's get a quick check in the chat first. All right. So as we're trickling in here, I know some of you are just joining us. We are going to be creating a sticky, or I should say, sticky page navigation links to Divi sections. And this is going to be a really nice solution, an alternative for pages, one-page design, one-pagers like one-page websites, which normally resort to like anchor links in the main menu, and it's a good alternative to simply scrolling down your page. So here's a preview of what we're going to be building today. As you can see, this is broken up into sections. This is the top section, and you can tell because it says top. And these sticky links down here are going to really show throughout the whole page. I'll show you how to do that. But as you notice, as we scroll down the page, some new ones pop up. Like, for instance, when we get to section 1, we have a next, a next navigation link that shows up. We scroll down further. Now we have a next and a previous navigation link. And you can see those are being hidden as we get to the next section. The last section, section 3, of course, has just the previous because we don't really need the next. And then the bottom of the page is another section. But you can see if I click on the first navigation link, brings me back to the first section. Click on the next navigation link, brings me to section 2. Click next again, section 3, and go back previous sections as well. I can jump down to the last one at any time on the page. So as you can see, a really nice solution to navigating your page in Divi, and hopefully this comes in handy for you guys. We're going to show you step by step how to do this. And what we're going to do right now is check the chat and see. I've got Sanjeewa is from Sri Lanka. Okay. And I got it loud and clear, so thank you for that. Captain Sugar Free, what a great name, from Arizona. And question from Captain Sugar Free: are you going to show how to have anchor links be highlighted when you scroll into the section? Highlighted. So I won't show, well, I don't know what you mean by highlighted specifically, but I think we actually may have a tutorial on that already. But the good thing is these will basically be shown and hidden as needed whenever you're on the specific section. So I hope this is a solution that will be helpful for you. These aren't, I guess you could, like, for example, if you title this section 1, whenever you get to section 1, you can have that button highlighted differently. You can actually do that by just changing the background of the button in the sticky state for that section. But yeah, good question. We're not going to specifically address that, but it can be done. Let's see. Mohammed, welcome. Has a question. Hi, is Divi ready for core vitals? Not sure what is meant by that. I apologize. I'm not sure what core vitals are or what you mean by that. Maybe I should. I'm sorry. Maybe you can clarify or somebody can help them out. All right, we're going to go ahead and proceed. So, don't forget there's a link to the blog post that goes along with this tutorial. Blog post looks like this, and there you can actually download the JSON file to import it on your own website to test it out for yourself. And so that might be helpful for you. Also, just a reminder, this video will be available later on in our YouTube and Facebook channel or page. So check it out later on if you need to, and or if you feel like you can't stay for the long haul, you can always check it out later. Okay, so if you're just joining us, welcome to this week's Divi use case live stream. Today we're showing you how to create some sticky page navigation links to those Divi sections to help you navigate. Extremely helpful for, pages that you want to showcase sequential sections, steps, stuff like that, process, things like that, or just having a one-page design for your website. This might be very helpful for that. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to get started by creating a new page using the Divi builder on the front end. And I've already got my default section ready to go. But I do want to edit my section first. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to edit my section first. And this first section is just that top section. We're not going to be adding any sticky navigation links to it. We're just going to build a quick section. We're going to be duplicating sections throughout just to speed up the process and show you how you can add new content to your own website later on. So first thing we're going to do is take out the padding of our section, or the bottom padding. So section settings under the design tab, for the bottom, just set it to 0. This is important so that our sticky row that we're going to be adding is going to sit nicely at the very bottom of that section. We don't want any padding because that's going to offset it and make it come up some. So we want to make sure that it is at the bottom. Other than that, we're going to save it. That's pretty much it. We're going to add a new row, and it's going to be a 1-column row. This is just some mock content. I'm just going to add a section title just as filler for our use case here. I'm not going to add my module yet because I'm going to edit my section settings. My row settings. So jump into the row settings. I'm going to keep the, background, transparent. Don't need a background. Let's go to the design tab And let's give it a custom width. So let's go ahead and give it a 100% width and a max width. I'm going to set it to 80 VW, which is 80% of the viewport width, which is relative to the browser window. I am going to be using the VW length unit for our buttons, our sticky buttons as well, to make it nice and responsive. And let's go ahead and give it a max width on tablet, or on phone, I should say, of 95 VW, because we want some extra room on our phone. But let's keep it the same on tablet. So 80 VW on. All right, so we're good there. Let's go ahead and add our section title. So to speed up the process, I'm basically going to copy I forgot to do something in my row. Back up. Sorry. Go back to row settings. And I basically need to create some space, some scrolling space, because for this design to really work, your section really needs to, extend at least to the height of your browser height, if that makes sense. So I'm going to add some spacing to my row. I'm just going to add like 40 VH to the top and bottom. It's going to create a lot of padding there just to give us some scrolling space for our sections. Okay. And let's save that out. Now let's add our module here. So I'm going to copy my text module and paste it in here. This is just a text module with a header. If I can, here we go. Paste module, there we go. So this is just a text module with a H2 header with some design added to it. You can see the blog post for how to design that specific heading design, but for the sake of time, we're just going to paste it in there as some mock content. And we're going to proceed with creating our next section. So this is just the top section. We're going to create section 2 or section 1, which is going to be the first section that's going to have our navigation links. So to do that, first I'm going to open up my layers view. Let's bring that over here. And I'm going to duplicate this section. And I'm going to add a label to it so we can see that this is section 1. This is the top section, so we don't get confused later on. And let's go ahead and scroll down, and you can see that our duplicate section is there. I'm going to give that section, I'm going to open up the settings for section 1, that duplicate, and I'm going to give it a background color so we can see some distinction. All right. And very important, I want to add an anchor, or I should say a CSS ID to this section. And we're just going to call it, or give it the CSS ID, and we'll call it 1. And that will let us know that that's the first section. We're going to later on add an anchor link that's going to correlate to that and jump up to this section whenever we add that anchor link there. So that's why that's very important. We need to add that CSS ID to section 1. Let's go ahead and update our, save that out, and we can actually use the inline editor here to just change the text. Call it section 1. All right, that's easy enough. Now for the key part of the tutorial, or one of them, we're going to create our first sticky row, which is going to contain our sticky page navigation links. So the first one we're going to create, I'm going to open up my section here, and we're going to create a new row. So let's do that. Here's my row here. I'm going to add a new row, and let's make it a single column row. And for now, I'm just going to add in my column, I'm going to jump back and edit that column in a moment in my row settings. But as filler, I'm going to add a divider. Scratch that. We'll do that later because it makes more sense to build out our row first. So we're going to add our navigation links inside of our column here. But first, let's go ahead and make our row sticky and style it a bit and position it exactly where we want it. So we want it to sit to the right of the page and make it sticky. So we're going to open up our row settings. And first thing we're going to do is go to the advanced options and go to scroll effects. And this is where we can add our sticky position. And we're going to add it as stick to bottom. So we want to add the sticky position, stick to bottom, and the top sticky limit we're going to make section because we want to limit it to the section so that we can show and hide it on a section by section basis. And I'm going to turn off the offset from surrounding sticky elements. We don't need that. And this will make sure the sticky row will, well, as I already said, will be contained within the section. Let's go, now that we have our sticky position set, that's going to allow us to, add styles to the sticky state. So once that's, active, now you'll have some sticky state options that'll be available in the design tab and everywhere on your settings modal here in our row. For the sizing, let's go ahead and give it a custom gutter width of 1. Takes out any margins. We don't need those. And let's make it 100% width and give it a max width. Here's where we're going to get a little bit creative here. So our max width is going to be 25 VW, and which is 25% of the viewport width. And then we're going to do the same on tablet, 25 VW. And on phone, we're going to make it 50%. So now, if you can see, we need to make our row alignment. We're going to align our row on desktop to the right. So now there it is to the right. If I hover over my row, you can see it. There it is. And we want it to be aligned to the left on mobile. Scroll down here. So on mobile, you'll see it take up 50% to the left. So that's what we want for our position of our row. Let's go ahead and take out the padding. I'll go back to my desktop view here. And let's take out the padding on our row. So we'll set it to 0 for top and bottom. Okay. And that takes care of that. So now, in order to, the next thing we're going to do is add a transform translate to our row, which is going to hide it in the default state, but show up in the sticky state. And I'll show you how to do that. But basically what we're looking for, go back to our final result here. If you notice that, keep an eye on this next button here. As I scroll, in the sticky state, it's visible, right? It's in its sticky state right now. But once I get past the sticky state, it hides itself. It gets tucked away behind that section that follows it. So that's what we're doing with our translate option. So to do that, let's go ahead and add activate our sticky tab there. But on desktop, we want to, let's unlink it first. And for the y-axis, we want it to be set to 100%. This will hide it or tuck it away by default. As you can see, it's sitting right down there below the section. Let me close my settings. There it is, sitting right below. But on the sticky state, I'm going to make sure it comes back into view. So set it to 0%. And now you can see in the sticky state, it's going to pop up. So that's what we're doing there. And lastly, for our row settings, let's go to our advanced tab, and we need to offset the position a little bit because, as you can see, this in the final result, the next and previous links are actually in one row, and then the first and last buttons are in another row, sticky row. So I need to offset this next and previous navigation link row, if that makes sense. I need to offset it to the left so we can, see, so it won't overlap this sticky row over here. So to do that, we're going to set under our position options, the offset origin, we're going to set to top right. And we're going to do, for the horizontal offset, let's go ahead and engage our responsive tabs. And we are going to set it to, if you remember, our width is 25 VW, so we're going to offset it by that much. So 25 VW to the left. So there it is. Now it's offset. And I want to keep the same on tablet. And then on phone, I'm going to set it to 0. 0 pixels or 0%. So that, because we don't need an offset, because as you remember, it is going to be left aligned. Our row is going to be left aligned on mobile anyway, so we don't need to do the offset there. Always got to keep mobile in mind. All right, let's go back to our desktop view. And let's save out our row settings. And now we're getting to our column settings. So I'm doing all this before I add an actual module. And I'm just kind of thinking ahead here. So for our column, we have a single column row. All right. So this, but we do want two buttons to be adjacent to one another inside of that column. I mean, I guess you could use a 2-column layout here, but you would have to make sure that it doesn't stack on mobile, which it does by default. A nice, easy way to do this is to add a snippet of custom CSS. And basically all we're doing is I'm going to open up my column settings under my advanced tab. Under custom CSS for the main element, I'm going to I'm going to use display grid. So the display grid, basically what this does is creates a grid layout for any of the child elements that exist within the column, which in our case is going to be dividers or buttons. And it's going to make sure that each one, or in that grid, is basically made up of 2 columns. Each of them are 50% in width. So nice, easy way to get a grid for our column that exists within our column. All right, now we're ready to add a module. So to do that, we can just add a new module. We can do it from the layers view here. And let's add a divider first. Why am I adding a divider? Because I thought it was a better user experience to, make sure that those buttons, let's go back to our final design here. You can see that I don't really need a space for a previous button for here, for this section, because it is the first section. So instead of adding a button and hiding it or whatever, I'm just using a divider to just kind of as filler there. And make sure to set the show divider option to no, because we don't want to see that line or anything. So that's our first item. And then the next module we're going to add is in the same column, we're going to add a button. So and you can see there it is at the bottom. I'm going to change my button text to say next. All right. Now, I also want to add a link. So we're thinking ahead here for our anchor link functionality. So we want our button link URL to correspond to the next section CSS ID. So we already have a section CSS ID for section 1 called 1. We're going to name the next one 2. So thinking ahead, I'm just going to add a anchor link URL here with the hashtag, let's see, there you go. And then followed by the word 2. So that's what we're doing there. Now, we're going to style our button. So try to do this fairly quickly. Could suck up some time, but let's make our button text size. This is where I'm getting a little creative with responsive or VW length units here. So my button text size, I want to be 2.1 VW. That will make sure that it continues to grow as the browser width grows. But when we get to mobile, or I should say phone, I want to change it to 16.1 pixels. So, because we don't want because we're using VW length units, we don't want that to get too small on mobile, which it would. So we're adding a pixel length unit for that. All right. So our button text color, we're going to set it to black. All right, let's make sure that we can see our button. Okay, there we go. And let's add a button background color. We're just going to use a light gray there. Take out the border width. Don't need that. Let's go, and it basically takes care of what we need. All right, so let's do, let's see. For the spacing, I want to make sure I don't need any custom spacing. Do a little check here. I didn't add any here. So, but if you find yourself needing more room or whatever, you might need to add your own custom spacing. But since it's based on the M length unit by default, it'll adjust according to the text size. So I think we're good there. I do want to go and add a icon. So we want a next icon. So it makes sense to add a down arrow here. And we want to make sure and show it always. So unclick that option, only show icon on hover for button, set it to no. All right. I'm not going to add any custom padding, but I do want to add a custom margin because we're going to make this button span the full width of that little CSS grid. But we want it to have a little spacing. So to do that, I'm just going to add 2% of margin to the right. And with that in place, now I can go to the Advanced tab and a little snippet to, in case you ever want your button to span the full width of your column or whatever. You set your, the display, you make sure and set the display to block and make sure the width is 100%. And so now you can see it is 100%. So that's good. I think, let's see. One last thing, I think my button text isn't centered. So let's go to the Design tab and make sure that it is centered. There you go. So button alignment centered. I think we're good. Done. All right. So now we're ready for section 2. But before we do that, it's been a while that I checked on you guys. So I'm going to see what's up in the chat here. We got Heber or Abear, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, says nice, nice, awesome. Glad you're enjoying it. Gonzalo, hi there. Asked the question, why do I change from VW to %? I think I answered that basically because we don't need the VW on the phone view because the 50% is significant or sufficient, I should say, for that. And another reason, if you really want to know, the VW length unit doesn't take into account the scroll bar. So, and percentage does. So, if you want, make sure and it's just cleaner when you use percentage for width, especially for a full width view of something instead of the VW for that, because it doesn't take into account that scroll bar. So good question. Dominic says this is really handy to create some sort of PowerPoint type of marketing. Thanks, Jason. All right. Appreciate it. Yes, that would come in handy. Could use it as a PowerPoint slide. Mario, hola from Ecuador. Nice to have you. Lars, also from Ecuador, or to Ecuador from Belgium. Hola. And M, hello, welcome. All right, so it looks like don't have many questions. Let's go ahead and continue on. We've created our first section with our sticky navigation row here in place. Now all we need to do to create our next section is duplicate section 1. So I love to duplicate things in Divi. Makes it a whole lot easier. All right, so we have duplicated our section. I'm just going to label it section 2 so we don't get confused. And I'm going to open up my section settings and give it a different background color. Save it out. Oh, can't save it out yet because remember, we need to add, open up that section 2 settings again. Go to Advanced tab. We need to add that CSS ID. You can see it's carried over that 1 ID, so we need to make it 2 because this is our second section we want to link to. And let's go ahead and use the inline text editor, relabel that title section 2. And then let's go ahead and add our buttons. So we have remember this one, for section 2, now we need a previous button in addition to our next button. So we're going to just go ahead and delete this divider in our section, or in our column here. And we're going to duplicate our button. So now we have 2 buttons, which is nice. And you can see the CSS grid is doing its job. They're sitting nice and adjacent to one another. And the buttons are spanning the full width of each of those columns. And for the left button now, we're going to keep it as next. Yes. So we're going to keep that left button as the next button, but because we need to link it to the next section, which is going to be section 3, we're going to change the button link URL to #3. Save that. And now let's go ahead and edit the next button, the one on the right. I'm going to change the text now to previous, or an abbreviation of the previous. And we're going to change the link to, what's the previous section? It's going to be 1, right? So I'm going to link it back up to the 1 section, or section 1. And then we need to update the icon for that button. So under our button settings, where's that icon? We don't want a down arrow there. We want an up arrow. So there we go. Next, that takes care of that. Continuing on, we'll do section 3. And you guessed it, we're going to copy section 2. Or duplicate, sorry, section 2. And relabel it section 3. Let's go ahead and open up those child elements there. And let's open the section 3 settings, change the background color. You can see this is same process, right? As before. Change the background color. We need to update the CSS ID because it's not 2, now it's 3. And let's make sure our title says section 3. And let's go ahead and update our buttons. Since this section 3, we can continue on adding, more and more sections kind of in this middle section area with more next and previous buttons. But for for this tutorial, we're going to basically end or make our last section, section 3. So for our last section, we don't need a next button because it's the last one. We just need the previous button. So we're going to update that by taking out our next button and adding a divider like we did before. So let's go ahead and add a divider in there. Make sure we don't show it. And let's drag it to the top, that divider to the top, so that the previous kind of goes to the right. And that's, I think, it. Oh, we need to update our previous link if we haven't already. Did we do that yet? So open up our previous button settings, and now our link is not going to go to 1, it's going to go to 2, which is our previous section. Okay. Let's do a quick check of our final results so far. So as we scroll down, you see there's our next and previous buttons at work. And let's see if we click them. Yes. So they'll go to their corresponding anchor links. Nice. Okay. So next thing. By the way, hello, Muhammad. Welcome from India. Thanks for joining us. And let's continue on. If you are just joining us and you're lost, we are, in this live stream today, we are showing you how to add some sticky page navigation links to those Divi sections in a page. So we have created all of our, or most of our sections here. We have 2 more sections to add. Our next section is just going to be like our top section, basically filler. So to do that, we're going to duplicate this top section here and drag it to the very bottom. There we go. And if you remember, that section doesn't have any anchor links or sticky, it doesn't have a sticky row there with those anchor links. So this would be kind of like an example of more, sections on a page that you don't want to have those sticky links added to it. So I thought it would be helpful to just add a bottom section to show that. Let's change the text to bottom and update the label in the layers view to bottom section. So that takes care of that. Save it out. And for our last step, or last section, I should say, is we need to create a sticky section for our, let's go to our final design here. For these first and last navigation links, we're going to do a separate section for that, or a sticky section for that. So I'll show you how and why here, why we're doing that. So this section should go at the very bottom of the page. This is because if you want the next, or the first and last buttons to show throughout your page as you scroll, no matter what section you're on, I should say. So to do that, we're going to create a new section, and let's go ahead and make sure it's a regular section at the very bottom of the page. And let's go ahead and make it a one column row. Actually, so for this one, I don't really need a row. I'm going to just copy an existing row. So to do that, remember our sticky row that we made in section 2 with both of our buttons that we need? So I'm just going to, copy this row. Or maybe it's easy to just duplicate and drag it. I don't know. So I'll duplicate this row. And I'll drag it into the very bottom section. All right. So right down there at the very bottom of our row, you see there's our sticky row. But we need to change some stuff. First off, this very bottom section that we just created and added that sticky row to, I'm going to label it that section sticky bottom section, because we're actually going to make the section sticky, not the row. It's very important. So let's go ahead and before we make that, add our sticky settings to our section, let's jump into our row that we just duplicated and let's edit it. So we're going to edit that row and we're going to specifically jump over to the advanced tab under the scroll effects. We're going to basically reset the sticky position because we don't want it to be stuck anymore, because we're going to stick the section, not the row. All right. And we also want to give it a absolute position. And we want to position it to the bottom right. So the location is bottom right. And we also want to get rid of the offset. So I'm going to reset the offset back to 0. We don't need that. And as you can see, it's already floating nicely to the right where we want it, because it has the same width as our previous, or it inherited the width of the row that we duplicated. And we don't want any transform options for this, especially the sticky ones. So we're going to just reset our transform styles for the row and get rid of that. And save our row settings. Inside of our row, we need to update those buttons. So our next button that we inherited, we're going to change it to say first, or to the button text should be first. And we want to make sure that that anchor link URL is #1, which links to the first section we want to link to. It'll jump all the way up to the first, no matter where you are on the page. And we can update the icon, make it different, stand out a little bit. To do that, we'll just use this up arrow here. And let's do the same kind of thing for our previous button. Let's open up that button settings for our previous button here on the right. Change the button text to say last. Update the button link URL to the last section we want to link to, which is 3. So #3 for our anchor link. And then let's change the icon. There we go. All right, now for our last thing we need to do, as you can see, our section is sitting nicely at the bottom, but we want to make sure that it is sticky. We want to stick it to the entire page, or to the body of the page. And to do that, let's open up our section settings. And let's go to the design tab first. Make sure, I guess we could keep it to auto. I'm just gonna set it to 100% width. And here's a little trick. I'm just gonna set the height to 0 pixels. So that way, the section, the element, the section element really won't take up any actual space or hover over anything on the document. It's gonna just have 0 height. Make sure to take out the padding as well. But even though it does have a height of 0, the 2 buttons inside it are actually, or I should say the row inside of it has a absolute position. So it's going to still be visible outside of the section. So it's kind of a trick to show those items without having any section height. All right, so that's why we're doing that. And just in case, we want to make sure that the horizontal overflow and the vertical overflow is set to visible. So just in case it's not going to be by default, we want to make sure that the row is visible, and because our section, remember, our height is 0. So if not, it would be hidden. All right, so let's go ahead and add our sticky position to our section. So under scroll effects, let's go ahead and add the sticky position, stick to bottom. And let's add the sticky, or stop the top sticky limit to the body area. And let's offset from surrounding sticky elements, set that to no. And let's save it out. And let's check out the final result. Refresh. So our buttons, you can see, even though I'm at the top, those sticky, the sticky section with our first and last navigation buttons will always show no matter where we are on the page, along with our navigation links that we've added to each section. All right, let's check the click functionality. Let's go to the first, next, next, previous, previous, and last. And of course, you can always just change this first to link to, the very top of the page. You can even label it top or whatever. It could be a nice substitute for back to top for your page or something like that. And this could be, bottom or whatever. See if we have any questions before we wrap it up. Thanks for being patient today. We covered a lot of ground. We got a question from Farah from Pakistan. A question: how can we make postcards? Postcards. Postcards. How can we make postcards? I don't know. It's a good idea. I don't like a layout for postcards, like a design for postcards, something like that might be a good tutorial in the future. It's a good idea. If that's what you mean. Probably don't have time to address that in detail in this live stream, but good question. I'll consider it. But let's go ahead and check out what this might look like on mobile here. I'm just going to inspect it. So as you can see, once it gets to you can see that the functionality, let's go to our second section here. You can see how the two rows, are offset differently. But when we get to our mobile or phone view, it's going to change to that 50/50 layout there and give you some more room on mobile. So, of course, you can see the click functionality. Shrink it up a little bit. There you go. One last thing I want to mention before we go is you might run into the excuse me, you might run into the problem of these buttons being hidden if your section, the height of your section doesn't extend beyond the height of the viewport. You know, if that is the case, you can, you know, as a backup, for example, you could, you know, make sure, you know, like if I go to section 1 settings, I could make sure and set my, for sizing, I can set the min height to 100 VH, and that will make sure that that section will span the full height of the viewport, to make sure those buttons show up as you may want them to. Or you can also just kind of take out that transform translate option altogether if you want as well for those sticky rows, and they'll always be visible. So, all right, any last questions before we go? Getting short on time here. All right, looking good. It always happens that as soon as I end the live stream, some questions pop up. It never fails. So just give you a moment. And then we'll come to a close. Final result, once more. Here it is. Sticky page navigation links for your Divi sections. All right, that's it. That's all I got for you this week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please give us a thumbs up if you like the video. And also don't forget to subscribe to our blog newsletter, our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook. And make sure to click to get those notifications so that you can get notified every single time we have something new for you, like a live stream or a freebie or a new blog post, whatever. Make sure to get those notifications. And we'll be back here next week with another Divi use case live stream at Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks again, guys, and I will see you in our next video.